for madness.
Nerdrotic.com.
The debate over Amazon's Lord of the Rings and the Tolkien Legendarium has been going on for about a month now. Not sure what started it, but I'm glad we are having this conversation. Welcome to Revisionist Tolkien. Welcome to Rewriting Tolkien. Welcome to Woke-washed Tolkien. We're just a couple of days away from the Tolkien and Diversity Conference held by the Tolkien Society, which is going to center on CRT, intersectional feminism, and identity politics. The three things that the access media, the mainstream media, big tech, and Hollywood have all embraced, and those three things are very anti-Western culture. And there's nothing more Western culture than the Lord of the Rings and the Tolkien Legendarium, and that's why it has to go. That's why I'm not surprised to see people who have called themselves lifelong Tolkien fans or have run Tolkien websites for decades or have labeled themselves Tolkien experts or Tolkien scholars sell Tolkien out to the woke mob when Lord of the Rings is the most unwoke thing there is. That's why I love this headline from the National Review. J.R.R. Tolkien work transcends wokeness. Unapologetically, it's the National Review. I read a lot of garbage tier on this channel, and occasionally I like to pass on that rare thing we know as common sense. This article is written by Bradley J. Beersley on the Tolkien Society's misguided descent into contemporary pieties. He starts it out with 3 bad reviews of Lord of the Rings from 20 years ago, including this one. After the annihilating traumas of the last century, it's merely perverse to ascribe greatness to this airy but strangely simplified mock-Teutonic Neverland where races and species intermingle at will and great battles are fought, but there is never any remotely convincing treatment of those fundamental human concerns through which all societies ultimately define themselves: religion, philosophy, politics, and the conduct of sexual relations. There's a couple more, including this one. Tolkien, that's for children, isn't it? Or the adult slow, from Susan Jeffries, who wrote this in the London Times, and this is nothing new.
No, I don't at all like Tolkien or what he stands for. It seems to me that his work implies an escape from political and social reality.
Yep.
No, this seems to me is reprehensible. It's an implication of triviality, it's an implication of regression, a refusal to face up to our political and social problems, our religious problems of today.
Jump forward 2 decades or more, and the once venerable Tolkien Society of the United Kingdom, established in 1969 with J.R.R. Tolkien as its perennial president and Tolkien's only daughter, Priscilla Tolkien, as the vice president, really wants to undo the harsh words of that a-hole and Rissick, Greer, and Jeffries. How? By talking a lot about the most pressing concerns of the modern and woke left: diversity, inclusivity, and above all, human intimate relations, all a front for ideology. This brings us to gatekeeping. Yes, the G word, and I think it's applicable here. Now, normally my position is, if you want to be a fan, be a fan. Doesn't matter how long you've been around or how tall you are or how much you weigh or where you put your junk or what God you pray to. If you want to respect the work and share it with others, fine. But if you need to come in and pervert it, mutate it, subvert it, or distort it to make you feel validated somehow as a person, you don't need Lord of the Rings. You need therapy. Unfortunately, the Tolkien Society is letting the same wolf in the door that's destroyed so many others like DC Comics, Marvel Comics, Star Wars, Star Trek, and Doctor Who. That's why I'm signing up, and I will cover this event. Just did it right now. They don't want to share Tolkien's work. They don't want to respect his vision. They want to tear it down. And that's what this article is covering. And that's why I'm sharing it with you. As the Tolkien Society website describes its upcoming annual conference, Tolkien and Diversity. While interest in the topic of diversity has steadily grown within Tolkien research, it is now receiving more critical attention than ever before, affirmed by recent interpretations of Tolkien's creations in the cast list of the upcoming Amazon show, The Lord of the Rings. It is crucial we discuss the theme of diversity in relation to Tolkien. How do adaptations of Tolkien's work, from film and art to music,
open a discourse on diversity within Tolkien's works and his place within modern society. Beyond his secondary world, diversity further encompasses Tolkien's readership and how its texts exist within the primary world. Who is reading Tolkien? How is he understood around the globe? How many of these readings enrich current perspectives on Tolkien?
Well, considering it's one of the best-selling books of all time and one of the most translated, I would even call it one of the most accessible, it's doing just fine because it transcends trivial things like wokeness. Now, what's all the hubbub about?
What orders from Mordor, my lord?
We have work to do.
Discussions as listed at the website include Gondor in Transition, a brief introduction to transgender realities in Lord of the Rings.
What?
Pardoning Saruman, the queer in Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings.
What the hell?
The Invisible Other, Tolkien's Dwarf Women and the Feminine Lack.
Are you crazy? Is that your problem?
Destabilizing the cis-hetero amatonormativity in the works of Tolkien.
Is this gonna get ugly now?
God, enough. Now, they said it right there, destabilizing. So if they try to come at us with, we're just talking about it, we're just having conversations. No, you're talking about destabilizing cis anonormativity, and it's not even a fucking word. You're just making up words now. It's bullshit-tivity. While I have yet to read the papers and know only the titles for reference, isn't that enough? I mean, we have Gondor in Transition, a brief introduction into transgender relations in Lord of the Rings. Of course, it's going to be brief because it wasn't there. Some of which are so obscure and obtuse that I remain in a state of some confusion. You're not alone because you're supposed to be. That's why they constantly move the goalposts, change the rules, and make up language. Let's for a moment consider Pardoning Saruman, the queer in Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. In what way is Saruman an incarnate Maya angel sent by the Valar to do good in Middle-earth? Saruman really fails at this. Queer. Is he in love with himself? With his immense ego? He might very well have been. Is he in love with Orthanc? Well, that's a tower. I'm not really sure. It is a phallic symbol, perhaps, but there is nothing in the text to support this. Is he in love with Radagast the Brown? No, he considers him a fool. Is he in love with Gandalf the Grey? No, he's jealous of Gandalf and has been from their first arrival on Middle-earth. Is he in love with his bred orcs? Wow, that would be twisted, and maybe that's something they'll probably figure out at this conference. Is he in love with Wormtongue? Of course he is. That's something they most definitely will write about in this conference. If so, nothing will come of it, for the lecherous Wormtongue has a leering and creepy gaze for only Éowyn. And so I remain baffled by all of this. You shouldn't really be at this point. Nothing about a queer Saruman seems to make sense. It's not supposed to make sense. They are projecting themselves onto the story. How great is Western civilization, where we're all comfortable enough to debate fictional works and project things that don't even exist in it. Given the language as well as the ideas expressed, even if confusedly so, what is the 2021 Tolkien Society Conference really hoping to uncover? Well, you answer your own question right here. Over at The Federalist, John Daniel Davidson convincingly notes the only reason to torture Tolkien's work like this is not to understand it more deeply, but to tear it down. And why would modern scholars want to do that? Answer's obvious, at least over here, but it's nice to hear it from somewhere else, because everything that Tolkien was and everything he wrote is an affront to the modern, secular, anti-Western civilization scholars' understanding of the world, reality, and the meaning and purpose of life, because nothing matters, because it's all nihilism. So why would you like a story where good actually defeats evil when you don't actually believe things like evil exist? One could say the same thing about the most academic. However, there is something rapacious in the paper's title that just screams seduction of the innocent. The timing of the conference is telling as well. The Tolkien Society waited a full year after Christopher Tolkien's death to announce and arrange Tolkien and Diversity Spot on. Strange days indeed when an agnostic has to defend the very Catholic Tolkien and his works. As far as the why are they doing this, well, the article answers it right here. Aside from simply being woke and employing outrageous jargon, the Tolkien Society is anticipating a successful Amazon.com series. I wouldn't do that if I were you. It's trying to get in front of the series and influence it. No, this is not about getting in front of Amazon's Lord of the Rings and influencing it. It's about getting in line with it. It's about distorting Tolkien's work to fit in with the current Hollywood narrative. They have already ingested copious amounts of that Kool-Aid, and we know this isn't about diversity or inclusivity and identity, and it has everything to do with ideology.
There has become a thing that's gone on, it seems like in this, especially this last year, where what's the word I'm looking ideology is more important than art.
Way more, certainly to the awards.
Yeah. And it's just, it's like, ideology
Right.
trumps art.
And that's-
Ideology
right.
trumps individual
Terrible.
effort. Ideology trumps good. Ideology trumps entertaining.
There's two kinds of movies, virtue signalers
Yeah,
and superhero movies.
That's the one drawback about joining the woke mob. Eventually, you're going to have to destroy something you love. Indeed, the statements go as far as to claim the Society's own conference is critical. This, I would guess, is the real reason it wants so desperately to reinterpret Tolkien, to make it a lot easier for Amazon to reinterpret Tolkien with possibly the signed seal of approval of the Tolkien Society. You put enough academics on the job and they will most certainly find a way to project and rationalize whatever they want on Tolkien's work, and well, two can play of that game.
Tolkien and the free market.
Barnum and Butterbur and the independence and freedom of sole proprietorship in Bree in Lord of the Rings. The Sackville Baggins living trust and estate tax in the Shire in Lord of the Rings. Tolkien, the free market, and the piles of money he made selling Lord of the Rings.
Tolkien and the red pill.
Projection, envy and insecurity, the worm tongue in every SJW, the Eye of Sauron, the dangers of online censorship and the oligarchy of big tech in Lord of the Rings. No sympathy for Saruman, the dangers of selling out to your corporate overlords in Lord of the Rings.
Tolkien and religion.
Tolkien was really Catholic. Obviously, I'm no Tolkien expert or scholar. I am just a fan, but the Tolkien Society is filled with them. So maybe they'll find some writing or a letter that states very specifically the things they're going to be bringing up in this conference that's going to happen in just a few days. I would love to see it. For anyone who's looking for some sort of validation from your mass market media or your book or your comic book or your film, hate to break this to you, you're never ever going to find it. You are indeed looking for something, but you're not going to find it in Lord of the Rings. But I do have some very good news. The book is very accessible. It excludes absolutely no one, just the way it is. You can pick it up and read it whenever the hell you want. Considering everything I've heard from the Tolkien Society, I do have a book suggestion. And considering you're embracing postmodernism and nihilism, it has the perfect ending for you, because it doesn't end at all, because nothing matters. J.R.R. Tolkien and Christopher Tolkien aren't around to defend themselves anymore, so it's up to us. Gatekeep away.
Nerdrotic.com. Please subscribe.